So here's a pretty interesting story. So AOC has written a letter because Israel is trying to annex part of the West Bank, and it looks like she's pissed off AIPAC. Now, there's about a dozen lawmakers who have signed on. They're all Democratic lawmakers who have signed on to this letter that was written by AOC, and this letter kind of makes AOC sort of one of the more critical members of Israel in Congress. You got to remember, guys, when it comes to like being a politician, the window for your opinion on Israel Palestine has to be like it has to be pro-Israel essentially. Otherwise, you're an anti-Semite and you're basically canceled, and that's it. And so this automatically makes her one of the most progressive ones on this issue alone. Um, the letter reads, quote, "Should the Israeli government continue down this path, we will work to ensure non-recognition of annexed territories as well as pursue legislation that conditions the $3.8 billion in U.S. military funding to Israel to ensure that U.S. taxpayers are not supporting annexation in any way. We will include human rights conditions and the withholding of funds for the offshore procurement of Israeli weapons equal to or exceeding the amount the Israeli government spends annually to fund settlements, as well as the policies and practices that sustain and enable them." Now, this is real shit right here, okay? This is not just talk. It's actually, setting out a specific plan, having specific policy goals that they're going to aim for. It's going to spark another big debate, obviously, and it's going to be a very big deal. And it's such a big deal. And also interesting, another one here too. It says, the letter addressed to Secretary of State Mike Pompeo also said that annexation, quote, "would actively harm prospects for a future in which all Israelis and Palestinians can live with full equality, human rights, and dignity, and would lay the groundwork for Israel becoming an apartheid state, as your predecessor John Kerry warned in 2014. So it was interesting because, like, right before, if you remember this, Obama's administration was not adversarial to Israel in any way. They were funding them and they were buddies and all that. And they were really careful, and there may have been some tension there, but he was very careful not to piss off Israel in any way, or not to, do anything to actually, really sort of put his foot down. And so John Kerry, like right before it was like he was gone, Obama was gone, John Kerry is obviously Secretary of State, and there was, I believe it was a UN resolution that would condemn the creation of Israeli settlements. And it ended up passing, but all they had to do, because I believe they're one of the P5, in those Security Council resolutions, if any of the P5 basically votes one down, it gets vetoed. So, but instead of vetoing it, they voted present. They voted present instead. So they voted to abstain from voting, which allowed that resolution to go through. And then he gave a speech. So John Kerry kind of had some criticisms of Israel, but they were really scared to really do anything. And I think that they probably would have done more, but I think they were just too scared, really scared. And so AIPAC actually went on Twitter. This is really hilarious, and I love this personally because this is great. Anytime I see AIPAC mad at something, it's pretty dope. It says AIPAC opposes the letter being circulated by AOC, Jayapal, Rashida, and Betty McCollum, which explicitly threatens the U.S.-Israel relationship in ways that would damage American interests, risk the security of Israel, and make a two-state solution make a two-state solution less likely. Okay. It says the letter rejects President Obama's security assistant commitment to Israel. Dems and reps in Congress agree the MOU is in America's interest and is a key pillar of our security strategy in the region. Congress must continue to fully implement the Obama-Joe Biden MOU. The U.S.-Israel relationship is a mutually beneficial partnership that reinforces our moral values and strategic interests. The overwhelming majority of Democrats and Republicans in Congress and across the country agree that America is best served when we stand with Israel. That's true about Congress, and it's largely because of organizations like AIPAC. If you go back to the George H.W. Bush days, where he was basically freezing, loan guarantees for Israel unless they stopped, creating settlements, and then AIPAC just went all out, full-fledged. It did damage to him for sure. A strong U.S.-Israel relationship keeps us safe, protects our troops, creates American jobs, and addresses 21st century challenges. America's security assistance to Israel is an investment that serves our national interest, including promoting peace and deterring war. I just love how a lot of this stuff, it's all appeals to like, oh, hey, look, it's going to create American jobs. It's really good for economies. It's beneficial financially. None of it really has to do with anything moral or any of that kind of stuff. And unfortunately, we've kind of transferred to that. And I guess it's always been that way, really since day one of existence, especially with civilizations. War's always been an economy, always, 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 always. You can justify wars for economic purposes, even though there's millions, people dying. Not in this specific, fight, but obviously, in general speaking. But yeah, AIPAC is angry. So shout out to AOC for this letter. I really like the detail that is given in this letter, where it legit has like real shit that it's doing. It's not just like, sort of just like, oh, fuck you, Israel. It's like, oh, we actually are gonna pursue these very specific policy positions right here that I just read to you that are really solid, good stuff. So, shout out to AOC, man. That is solid.